we cannot have a system that regulates impunity and then that licenses men to act as though they are gods and citizens as serfs that they can simply trample upon their head and then use the courts to legitimize the evil.
Hi friends, I hope this video finds you well. Guys, I want to show you a video of, a Nigerian senator coming out to say to the public how his wife, who happened to be the head of court of appeal, right? How the wife was influencing cases, do you understand? For his friends, his political friends. Number one. Number two, I want to also show you a video of a northerner on national television where he accused Afe Babalola of, the Nigeria stolen oil in China that was discovered. You understand? Alarm was raised. Guess what? Afe Babalola was bribed to come out and tell the public that the whistleblower was lying. And later, you understand, there was proof that he wasn't lying. Afe Babalola was actually paid for it. Do you guys understand? I have a lot to say. Arise TV has dissected this matter. Isn't it insane that the Nigeria police IG, a Tinubu houseboy, is filing a case against Farotimi for accusing the judiciary of corruption? Meanwhile, a couple of months ago, this same IG, in a public speaking in Lagos, accused the Nigerian judiciary and even went further to say that it needs overhauling. You know what? Like I've said from the onset, the case of Farotimi is the voice of Jacob, but the hands of Esau. I'm going to leave it here. Please watch this video to the end. At the end of the video, I'm going to come back to dish out just some few things for 1 minute that you and I will need. If you hate oppression, you hate the way Nigeria is going, you hate the way we are trapped as Nigeria under the cage of APC, and you also believe, you also have opinion with me that there is no future for Nigeria under APC. The first you have to do now is to please help me like this video so that Facebook and YouTube can recommend it. Please share it in all the platforms you belong so that everyone can see this video. It is very, very loaded.
It's abroad, During Buhari's administration, I'm aware 2 teams were sent to China. They came back and confirmed that we have crude oil there. Later, NNPC hired Afe Babalola to go on television, advertise on the papers that the whistleblower is a liar, that nothing like that happened.
And lawyer Chidi Odinkalu has caused a frenzy on social media with his article titled "In the Matter of Dele Farotimi" before the Star Chamber, after revealing that the Ekiti State's criminal law of 2021 does not include the crime of criminal libel or defamation, which human rights advocate Dele Farotimi is being charged for. The lawyer further stated that Section 70 of the law only contains a crime of causing disaffection or breach of the peace through offensive publication, which is punishable by 6 months in prison. And that is, however, not the issue in Farotimi's case. Odinkalu also stressed in his article that the charges presented by the Nigerian police force did not also disclose a crime over which a magistrate in Ekiti State could purport to exercise lawful jurisdiction, and that despite the absence of jurisdiction, the magistrate proceeded with undue haste to order the remand of Dele Farotimi in prison until December 10th, a day ironically set aside to mark International Human Rights Day. Well, let's take some reactions. This is from Atedo Peter side. He wrote, "I consider this article by Chidi Odinkalu to be compulsory reading for those who still wonder what all the fuss is about re Dele Farotimi being abducted in Lagos to appear before an Ekiti magistrate. Thousands of Nigerians are charged to court every day, and many of us do not get involved if they are not remanded in custody for a misdemeanor unnecessarily. We leave them to defend themselves before a court that we presume will give them a fair hearing. We only get excited when we fear that some rich man or man might be using their privileged position in society to get the police to go after a poorer person. Hashtag Free Dele Farotimi. While Mood wrote, if truly the Ekiti State Criminal Law of 2021 no longer recognizes criminal libel or defamation, Dele Farotimi's arrest raises serious legal and constitutional concerns. Was his arrest based on outdated laws or misrepresentation of the current legal framework? Transparency and adherence to the rule of law are essential to maintain public trust in the justice system. Unfortunately, the ship of trust has since sailed. Well, Dele Farotimi's arrest continues to spark controversy over the powers of the judiciary and the rule of law. An old video of Adamu Bukachiwa, the senator representing Bauchi North, has now resurfaced on social media, where he stated during a valedictory session of the 9th Senate that he often influenced his wife, Zainab Bukachiwa, a former president of the Court of Appeal's decisions while she was in office, an accusation she vehemently denied.
I know, I look at faces in this chamber whom have come to me and sought for my help when my wife was the president of the Court of Appeal. We know ourselves. I must say that, okay, to round up, since that's what you want me to do, I will do that. And I must thank particularly my wife, whose freedom and independence I encroached upon while she was in office. And she has been very tolerant and accepted my encroachment and extended her help to my colleagues.
Distinguished, please, I don't think this is a good idea going this direction. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea.
All right, Dr. Vati, you know that this video will come up because it is quite apt given the time that we are in right now in Nigeria with the judiciary, Dele Farotimi's arrest, and that book. But what happened to this investigation really with Bukachiwa? And I also want to find out whether or not you read through that article by Chidi Odinkalu and those laws in Ekiti State that, you know, Dele Farotimi is being charged for, whether or not they're appropriate.
Well, nothing came out of the Bukachiwa case. And I think, you know, the husband also reversed himself, said, you know, he didn't quite mean it that way.
That he didn't mean it?
Yeah, and the woman and the learned judge also, of course, denied that anything of such ever happened, having had a distinguished career on the bench. But let's deal with the article by Chidi Odinkalu, and so many other articles that have been written, and you know, generating interest. The matter is now of public interest. That's why you find everybody commenting. Well, Chidi Odinkalu has a PhD in law, so he knows what he's talking about. But the issues he has raised, let's just break them down very quickly. He's talking about jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is very important. It's the legal capacity of a court to take decision on any particular matter. And jurisdiction is properly defined. Magistrate courts, for example, cannot inquire into land matters and so on and so forth. So he's saying that a magistrate court does not have the jurisdiction to inquire into federal cases. And he cites the example of you know, Justice Anyebe, a 1986 case, to prepare the grounds for this, a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court and was eventually the ruling of the Court of Appeal was reversed on the basis of jurisdiction. Two, he says in the piece that Ekiti State has nothing like criminal defamation in its laws. The same case, as it were, with Lagos State and Edo State, also. And then number three, he says that the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, you know, to prove that indeed Chief Afe Babalola has been defamed in a criminal manner. Section 373 of the Criminal Code defines criminal defamation as something that can cause a breach of the peace. And that's why in one of the 16 charges, you see the police saying that, look, the defamation could result in a breach of the peace, because if you say the entire judiciary is corrupt, then of course people may rise against the judiciary. Now, this is Chidi Ondekalu's views. Other views have been expressed.
Yeah.
Take, for example, C0nfes, yesterday, I think, responded to Chidi Ondekalu. That's why I'm just trying to cite another view so that people don't just say, oh, because this person has spoken, that is the opinion. If you keep 5 lawyers in a room, they will have different opinions depending on the authority that they cite. Now, C0nfes, for example, argues that Ondekalu is wrong because he's talking about who took the case to the court. State courts cannot prosecute federal offenses. And he says in this particular case, the prosecutor is not the Attorney General of Ekiti State. It is the Inspector General of Police. So that's one argument from C0nfes. 2, he says that the Anyebe case has been overtaken by events and has been whittled down in Tanko versus the state, which is a 2011 case. In other words, there's a later precedent that should be cited rather than the 1986 case. And he said, in fact, it is not true that state courts cannot try, federal offenses, depending on jurisdiction. Finally, he says that the statutory competence to prosecute federal offenses, reside also in the state court. So there are 2 different sides to the matter.
Okay.
But the matter is already before the court. If, it will probably go from the magistrate court to the high court. And the lawyers, Farotimi's lawyers, if jurisdiction is the issue, they can bring it up. And it's something, jurisdiction is something you can bring up at any point in the trial of a particular matter. And it will have effect if the court decides that there is a absence of a jurisdiction, because it means that that particular court does not have the legal capacity to try that particular matter. So we just leave it to the courts. What I fear about is the fact that, what I'm afraid of is that, in fact, the breach of peace, that the police are talking about may well happen. Because now, I think I saw a statement by Omoyele Sowore saying that tomorrow, I think tomorrow is December 10th, that that Afe Babalola's chambers in Lagos should be, picketed. Isn't that some kind of confusion?
Well, I mean, that's a legal protest.
Number 2, the issue about justification, because that's the strongest defense in law, in defamation.
Yeah.
Some civil society groups, they've now gone to WikiLeaks to go and bring out evidence that WikiLeaks reported certain things about Chief Afe Babalola. Well, it's for the court to also determine whether that amounts to any evidence, and whether hearsay evidence is admissible in this particular matter.
Okay.
So let's leave it to the court.
We'll see how it goes. But was it only jurisdiction that Ondekalu put out there? I don't know if it was only jurisdiction. I think there was also the case of whether or not criminal defamation is a crime.
Yeah.
Besides jurisdiction, the fact that what he's being accused of is not...
he cited that. But also, what I want to talk about, Dr. Bati cited that. What I want to talk about is also the what's it called, the misstep in the procedure. Because now the police have now filed another case at the Federal High Court. I'm sure they probably had seen that they had a misstep in the first procedure arresting Dele Farotimi. So many questions will suffice. Why was the Attorney General of the state not in this in the first place? If the police was trying to prosecute him, going to arrest him to be prosecuted in Ekiti State. And secondly, the fact that you took a man all the way from Lagos against his way to Ekiti State, prosecuted under a law that does not exist in Ekiti State. Because until Chidi Kalu's revelation, which kudos to him for, all of us on this table erroneously believe that criminal defamation is part of the law in Ekiti State. That was the lie that we're made to believe.
Yeah, that was the main.
Until
we had raised the Lagos one.
in fact, we had raised the Lagos one, but we said no, it is actually applicable in Ekiti. Until Chidi Kalu brought that revelation.
Yeah.
And I did go back to study it. In fact, I saw all of it. It was only that section 70 that I talked about. I talked about public breach based on a publication.
And that's a 6-month jail.
In fact, it doesn't exist there. And the Daily team probably might bring that up because it's a very important point. Secondly, as regards the point Chidi also raised, that the burden of proof will be on those that are prosecuting. Yeah, the burden of proof will be on the police that came to arrest, as also prosecuting, to be able to go one step further, to prove that he actually defamed, Chief Afe Babalola. Going another step further is also the case of the human rights breach that is filed. Because I think that's even a double whammy now, because now that we now know that Dele's right was not only violated, he was taken against his will for a law that does not exist in the state law, and the magistrates, and that's why the NJC too should also come into this.
Yeah, I believe
the magistrate just sat down and was quick not to give bail and left him in incarceration for a law that does not exist in the Ekiti State law. That's another part to it.
And
yes, I know, because
and he, even the magistrate court,
not having jurisdiction and sitting on the matter and remanding him in custody. And now the police has finally said, okay, let's push it up. Because at first, it wasn't a case against the IGP. It was after 2 or 3 days, after they had remanded Dele based on a law that does not exist, that the police quickly go to the Federal High Court and they say it's about the IGP, and they are now charging him based on the federal law of cyber stalking and all of that, which is another double whammy. So there are many missteps and loopholes in all of this. Like, I've heard the argument and the counter argument, by all parties and all of that. But most importantly, it will be incumbent on them to be able to prove that Chief Afe Babalola has been defamed. And also, Babalola Council granted a press conference in Ekiti where they were saying that Dele will have to prove. No, the burden of proof is not on Dele. It's on those that are prosecuting Dele that will have to prove. So that was not well said.
All right.
By the council. So there are many dimensions to this matter.
Tomorrow is International Day for Human Rights.
Yes.
Which is...
You assert must prove. All these matters will be worked out in court.
Yeah.
What Afe Babalola Chambers, in the statement they issued, is that, look, people should not take over the matter in the media.
Yeah.
It's before the court. And a street yelling will not make any difference.
Well, that's why Babalola Chamber has no right to tell us about street yelling. Because the matter is already in the court of public opinion.
All right.
So we have a different right. Just like this person wrote against, what's it called, on Chidi Kalu's view. That's how everybody wrote. There's nothing called street yelling. We all comment on the matter. So he has no right to tell us that.
Even carpenters and vulcanizers, they are commenting. Even Tuke drivers, they are commenting. Yes, but
this is the
law
joy.
Is what it
this
is.
the great thing about democracy and what we are practicing here. And everyone's opinion must be respected as well. I mean, Ayo, I think you wanted to make a very important point.
Yes, I was going to say that it was pointed out tomorrow, which is the day. No, because I mentioned it.
Dr. Mati, what is happening?
Tomorrow is International Day for Human Rights. And so when we're looking at human rights under the microscope now, we're looking at this case and how it infringes on his human right. It is quite ironic that he will be in court tomorrow, that is meant to be on the day of protest, International Day for Human Rights, just to say that. And when we talk about upholding the human rights of Nigerians, it's important to also put that in context. What I'll just say in summary is that a lot of people have talked about Chief Afe Babalola's right to defend himself. Any man, for that matter. Any man.
Yes,
but what we are calling for is that due process must be followed, and it mustn't seem as if a different set of laws apply to different people based on their status, whether they are elite or whether they whether they are poor. Everybody, the law should make everybody equal. So whether or not you're offended, it should be due process followed. That's what people are saying.
I love what this case has brought to the public space at this moment. Dr. Mati is laughing. But I want to come to you with this story as well. We'll take another story.
Good. The facts are inside the court's own records, notoriously. So if people are not happy with what I have said, that's their problem. But it's not about their person, it's about the situation, the system that has allowed such levels of abuse. We cannot have a system that regulates impunity and then that licenses men to act as though they are gods and citizens as serfs that they can simply trample upon their head and then use the courts to legitimize the evil. No.
So you are saying what you have inferred in this book to me looks like a frustration of a lawyer who has seen the worst case scenario of what could have happened in any justice system, even in hell, and you have said, look, anybody who goes to find justice in the Nigerian system is a sheer waste of time. Does that represent your position after all said and done?
To a very large extent, you are correct, but I need to, because there are nuances to these things as well. Number one, it would be disingenuous of me to suggest that it is the evils that I saw in the system that led me to walk away from legal practice. That would not be true. I had already decided I was leaving when I turned 50. What happened in this case happened, I think, in 2013. So it's a story that took, 2012, 2013, is a story that took almost 12 years to write. So even after it had happened, I remained in practice for, I think, another 5 years before retiring. So it wasn't because of this. But when it comes to the truthfulness of your assertion that I had become disenchanted with the capacity of the system to deliver anything of value, you are completely correct. It had become clear to me that the Nigerian judicial system is completely unfit for purpose. Look, United Nations Office for Drug and Crimes was very clear in his indictment of the Nigerian judicial system. He says it is corrupt, horribly corrupt. That is not me. It is now my own experience. You know, when you are talking in abstracts and you are talking about the corruption of the judiciary, you are still speaking abstractly. What I have done is to offer my own first-hand experience within the system. I have merely spoken to what I saw within the system, what I witnessed. So where the United Nations Office for Drug and Crime can speak generally and in broad terms, where Mr. Shofunde could speak about the Supreme Court having become perfunctory with his judgment. I'm quoting him. Supreme Court judgment has become perfunctory. This is not, those are not rabble rousers. You can say Dele Farotimi is not well, he's a rabble rouser. Those are not Dele Farotimi. Those are individuals and institutions to whom you can at least ascribe some measure of temperance, unlike me. So that's what it is.
All right, thank you so much for watching. Guys, you see, for some days now, my focus, the content I focus my attention on is on Dele Farotimi. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I hate injustice. And injury to one is an injury to all. My life, my everything, I'm wired to fight injustice. You see, some of you now who feel when one Nigeria is oppressed like this, of this same level, you keep new, you feel it doesn't concern, it's not my problem. Like some will say, it's a battle for the Almighty. See, if they are putting their finger on the eyes of somebody who is the voice of the masses today, somebody who is such a person who is high an influencer, a barrister of such level, who see at his chamber, who wrote a book that indicts the government, is shaking them currently. If such a person, they can still put the finger in his eyes, you take your eyes off. You think it will not come to you. If they are oppressing your neighbor or at the next door and you keep mute, you say nothing, it will get to your doorstep one day. So there are some persons I am watching. When the government are oppressing other citizens like this, some of you are looking. Some of you are even directly supporting them. I want to assure you something. The time will come to get to your turn. If it doesn't get to your turn, it will get to the turn of your loved ones. Then you will look for people like us to help you fight. You will look for people like us that have some level of influence on social media to help you fight. That I can tell you. If you hate If you hate injustice, you don't need anybody to tell you that. Video, if you cannot hear your voice, those of us who are hearing our voice, you don't have any right to fight against us. Video, as you are seeing the first thing to do is to just share, let the whole world see it. Anyway, thank you. If you're first time of coming across my video, I want to say a big thank you to you for stopping by this Holy Ghost platform, a platform that tells you undiluted truth.